with Mr. Chuck Ellis, and he's running for sheriff of Marshall County, and we just want to just get his thoughts and everything to see where he stands. And I've talked with him in length and know that he's a pretty good man. And I just want Marshall County to know this, and cast your vote in November for our Marshall County Sheriff, Mr. Chuck Ellis.
That's right. Yeah.
And Chuck will.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to do this. And I remember whenever you first asked me at the Republican Club meeting if I'd be interested in doing it, and I remember telling you that I thought we'd talk a little bit about God, family, and guns, and you know, those rights that we have as citizens, and talk about just some things that need to be talked about.
What is your standing in Marshall County as sheriff? You're running for sheriff. I have to say, if you get elected, I won't say when, but what is your standing on as far as your job and your trying to correct some of the problems that we have in Marshall County and defending the citizens' rights for Marshall County? You said God and family and guns, and that's a real good point. I'm glad that you put God first, because God always comes first.
Sure.
So I'd like to hear your statements on that.
You know, when I'm elected, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to establish a transparent government that the people can look at and see and realize that there's fairness in that office. And one of my handouts I give, I talk about, you know, firmness coupled with fairness, and that it all centers around that. You know, we can be firm in our enforcement of laws, we can be firm in our in how we interact with people, but we're also fair. We want to make sure that people know they're being treated fairly. There's some issues going on, and it all starts with how you treat people, how do you interact with them. You know, we got to be courteous. We got to understand that not everybody's the same, but whenever people need help, they need it at that moment, and we need to realize that at any time when people call upon us, we've got to be willing to help them and try to help them solve their problems, whether it be an issue with an animal running loose on their land to somebody that's doing something wrong, and we got to attack it head on, and we got to be willing to attack the things that are happening from A to Z. We got to be willing to enforce those laws that are on the books, and not just be a sheriff's department that goes out and serves papers, but be a sheriff's department that goes out and becomes proactive in the communities and works with the people in the communities, gets out and talks to them. And I've said it many times that as sheriff, you'll see me out in the community. Somebody told me, no, there's no way you're going to be able to get out in the community as much as you think you're going to. So you'll be spending 90% of your time in the office. Well, if I've got good people working for me, that whenever they understand my vision and what the mission is of the sheriff's department, that gives me the opportunity to go out and interact with the people and to find out what's going on, where we need to focus our areas, what priorities we need to establish. You know, I was talking a while ago about an initiative. If it's not yours, leave it alone. Nobody likes a thief. You know, that's one of those initiatives where just in my time of running for sheriff, I went out in the communities and I realized there's people that are getting robbed blind at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning in Marshall County. And I don't mean robbed as in somebody coming into their house with them there and robbing them. I mean burglarized. People going in the middle of the day. And that's a problem. And when we see problems like that, we got to be willing to put the force out there to let people know that we're not going to tolerate that. And we've got to do it from the standpoint of being proactive, attacking this thing from the get-go. And it's imperative that we do that. If we don't, you know, the people that are doing it are getting ahead of us, and then we're being reactive. You know, when the investigators got to go out all the time and be reactive to situations that are happening, we've got a problem. But when an investigator's riding with a patrol officer and they're being proactive and they're in a place where something's occurred and we're trying to prevent the next one, then we're being proactive. Proactive law enforcement is paramount in everything we do.
That's good. That's good. I listened to you talk once before, and firmness and fairness. You know, you seem to me like a pretty fair guy.
Yeah.
How firm and how fair are you going to be? I mean, we have a sheriff now that I don't want to talk negative about anybody. You know, I try to talk positive, but I want to know, you know, your fairness and your firmness as sheriff in Marshall County. Where do you stand on that?
Robert, I think you know, it's all inherent to us that we've all got good in us. It's just a matter of to what extremes that it comes out. And you know, fairness all starts with how we treat people and how we interact with them. I've been a state trooper for 12 years, and one of the main words in the badge that I wear, it says courtesy, being courteous to people and letting them know that we care about what's happening to them. There's people that will do wrong, and we got to realize that there's got to be firm punishment that's administered against those people. But at the same time, we've got to realize that firmness coupled with that fairness is what's going to lead us to being able to attack some of the problems that we've got. If a person commits a crime and we realize that the situation has arisen, we've got to know that we're able to be fair with the person, but keep driving on and trying to solve the problem that we're
and that is you put God first. I'm not gonna put denominations in there because I'm a non-denominational believer, and I just want to know, you know, a little bit about you. What church do you go to? And I know that you can't get out and see every individual in Marshall County. That's impossible.
There's a lot of people.
And I get out and go a lot, but there's people I meet every day that I've never met before. Right. But I know you know, there was a sheriff in Tennessee that he took his office in his car. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, I know you're not out here to make a movie of yourself. Right. They made a movie of him because he was a great sheriff. Mm-hmm. And he stood on the constitutional rights of the individuals and of the country. And I want to know where you stand there, not just with God, but with country.
Oh, I'm a strong believer. I mean, the Constitution is the basis for that is our laws. I mean, whenever I say that we're going to enforce the laws A to Z, the Constitution spells it out. The state of Alabama Constitution spells out what laws that we're supposed to enforce. Federal codes designate what laws. I mean, that's the Constitution. I mean, the lawmakers in Montgomery and Washington, they pass the laws, and it's our job as law enforcement officers to make sure they're done. If I, as a sheriff, stay in the office and do nothing but stay there and oversee whatever's going on at the office, then how am I to be able to go out and determine what the pulse or the heartbeat of the community is? You know, it's hard to determine what the heartbeat of the community is if I'm not out there holding people's hands, checking their pulse. I mean, you got to look people in the eye, and you got to be telling them, say, hey, look, I understand what you're going through. We're going to try to help you get through this. And if something's been done to you, I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure that justice is served. Because when justice is served, I'm helping you solve a problem. Like I said before, we're not going to solve every problem. I know that. But there's no reason we can't try to help people do things.
There you go.
I mean, if we really want to make a difference, you know, you've always heard those saying that one person can make a difference. I believe that. But the biggest thing I believe in is, well, like I said a while ago, God, family, and that Constitution. When I say guns, you know, Second Amendment right says right to bear arms. And it doesn't say right to bear arms against each other.
Right.
I mean, it specifies against the government, the uprising of the government against us. So, that Second Amendment, that First Amendment, your Fourth Amendment even, when you get down to search and seizures. But, the freedom of speech, for us to be able to sit right here, right now, in front of 3 crosses, and be able to talk about this and say, God is first, family second, country. When I say country, I mean what we stand on.
Right.
And when we forget that Constitution is there for a reason, that people have put into place, that were pretty intelligent people, that our forefathers did this, that it's there for a reason. And when the laws are written, then we need to follow them. We don't dissect the Constitution and pick and choose what laws we need to enforce. I take for example the issues we've got on the southern border. I mean, we've got issues with the southern border that affect people all over the country, and it's because we're not being firm. Now, I've got no problem with being fair. I mean, there's people that are struggling there, but there's still, think about the folks that have stood in line and are trying to get into the country, and it takes a long time. I've got friends that have migrated here. I've got friends that I know that have gone to Atlanta and been sworn in as citizens. I've got a friend that owns a store over on US 231. I go in there when I'm working, and I stop and talk to him one day, and he tells me, "Hey man, I'm going to be sworn in tomorrow, or Monday or Tuesday as a U.S. citizen." I said, "That's awesome." I said, "That's awesome." Yeah. I said, "Where?" He said, "At the ICE office in Atlanta." And I said, "Really? You mind if I come?" He said, "You're joking." I said, "No. If you'll tell me where to be and when to be there, I'd love to see that, because I want to get educated on it. I want to find out the process you got to go through to do that, because I've heard how difficult it is, but now I want to see it." So the following, I don't remember if it's Tuesday or Friday, it seemed like it was a Thursday maybe, I load up about 5 o'clock in the morning and drive to Atlanta. I go to the motel he's at, he's excited, he's getting ready. 9 o'clock, we're at the ICE office. The first thing I had to do before I went into the federal building was remove my pistol out of my pocket, because I can't go in with it. Even if you are a law enforcement officer, I went ahead and didn't like that, but it said, don't carry it in there.
Right.
And even as a law enforcement officer, I didn't want to get into it, but I think that's an infringement on your Second Amendment right. But I go in, and there's tons of people lined up there. And I've seen these people that have gone through the process, and he's telling me about it. And Sonny says, it took me 42 months from the time that I got my green card. He said the test to get my citizenship was easy compared to what it was whenever I got the green card. He said the green card test was 10 times harder. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's taken a long time. But I'm about to be a U.S. citizen. And man, I was excited for him, because that's the way the process works. Now, the laws that we've got, the government said we're supposed to be doing A, B, C, and D. Well, when people walk up to the border and we let them in without requiring those things to be done, and you call it asylum and you do all these other things that you let them in on, it'd be no different than if we go to Walmart in a minute and we stand in line for 10 minutes to get to the cash register.
Right. And
instead of standing in line 12 minutes behind us, somebody says, "Well, I need to get in because I got to go to the doctor," and they go jump in the line. Now, if the cashier allows them, they've condoned it. The cashier knows that they wouldn't stand there, and everybody looks at it, and usually everybody's not going to say anything about it.
Right.
But they're going to say, "Hey, wait." And one person might step up and say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I've been standing here for 10 minutes. You need to get in the back of the line and stand in line like everybody else." Well, there's no difference. And the laws are established to make sure that, and there's checks and balances in the laws that make sure that those things goes on. Second Amendment. If somebody says that we need to limit this, and this, there's reason that checks and balances are done at the local level on people. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you can go through the checks to make sure that you can carry a pistol concealed, you should have a pistol permit. Do I agree with everything that the Sheriff's Association has done with some of the laws they've wanted to implement? No, I don't. I've got a little problem with that. Some people ask me about carrying a pistol in the car. Should a car not be an extension of your home? And I say, to an extent, yes. Of course, if you carry a pistol in a vehicle, you've got to have a concealed carry permit. Stopped a vehicle I was working about 2 months ago. made contact with this young man on 79 South, down close to the Blount County line. Get up the vehicle and I go, "Hey, you sir." I introduced myself. He said, "I just want to tell you real quick, I've got a pistol in the car. It's right here." I said, "Good, appreciate you telling me that. That's awesome. Where is that?" "At the M1911A1. He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "That's nice. Is it Desert Eagle?" He said, "No, it's not Desert Eagle, but, you know." I said, "Is it loaded?" "Oh, no, sir. No, sir, I don't carry a loaded pistol." I said, "Why?" "Because you're exercising your Second Amendment right because you want to protect yourself. But how are you protecting yourself with an unloaded pistol?" I said, "Mine's loaded. This is the only time I carry open carry. So I promise you, whenever I'm off work and you see me, I'm going to have a loaded pistol because that's my protection for many reasons. But the issue is if you're not comfortable carrying a pistol loaded, then you might need to go practice with it because it might be better that you just leave it at home or just leave it in your trunk if it's going to be unloaded. Because I promise you, if you ever get in a situation where you've got to use that force where you think your life's in danger and you've got to stand your ground because somebody's about to hurt you, that person that's about to put your life in danger is not going to give you time to say, "Hold on, sir. Let me charge my pistol before you charge me with that knife."
On that point, one quick question about stand your ground. I haven't really studied on it. As a founder of White Cloud Ministry, I believe first and foremost God comes first, but family and country comes next after that. And I'm a firm believer in the Constitution. I stand behind the Constitution, First, Second, and Fourth Amendments. They've revised some of the 14th, 15th Amendment. That's not really, but anyway, stand your ground. Does Alabama have the stand your ground law?
Well, Alabama has I think it's the castle principle where, used to it'd say you had to retreat, try to retreat. Well, when you're at home, where do you retreat to? Home's as far as a man can go. When you're in your house, I go home to the 308 this afternoon where I live, and somebody confronts me in my house. At some point, it used to be, well, you've got to retreat to the furthest part of your home, and then once they back you in the corner, you like it. Well, no. Home's as far as a man can go. If I'm standing in my door at my house, and somebody assaults me, there's certain things I've got to do in my mind, especially as a law enforcement officer, because I've gone through many classes on what force to use with different kinds of force, i.e., if somebody approaches me with a knife, what force am I, by law, allowed to use? Well, unfortunately, most citizens haven't received that same type of training as far as, okay, if somebody approaches me with a knife and I know they're trying to do bodily harm, can I pick up a stick and hit them with it? Well, yeah. If they're approaching me with a knife, can I pull out my pistol, take aim, and if they keep coming, pop a shot? More than likely, yes. I would say, if imminent danger, then yes. But the stand your ground law, like what you'd hear in Florida, here is similar to the castle doctrine, I think is what they call it here. But I say again, if you're in your home, in your vehicle, and it all deals with what that imminent threat or what that perceived threat that you've got is. If a person coming at you with their fist balled up appears to be a threat that's going to kill you, it's all in that perception of what I think's about to happen to me.
Right.
If somebody pulls a gun out, points it at you, I can tell you what a thought that's crossed their mind, and it's not a good one. They didn't pull it out to show it to you. I've had folks come out. I've had folks stand across from me with knives, and me look at them and realize they didn't have the knife just to be standing there to show it to me. Unfortunately, I didn't have to take any further action because they ran. But my point is, in a split second, a person has to make a decision, especially law enforcement officers, i.e. the law enforcement officer in Missouri. A split second to make a life or death call. And you make that call, and if you make the wrong call, if he had made the call to retreat or back up, he could have stumbled, and the guy could have been on him, and he could have beaten him to death.
Right.
I mean, that's one of those situations that, and then to let the evidence come out, and they need to let the grand jury meet. They need to let everything take its course, because it will. And once it's all said and done, that'll play out. But we can't get attacked by the carpenter beast. But we can't just, I say again, go running at first sight, especially in your own home.
And I agree with you. And I think the most important thing, though, for the citizens of Marshall County or anywhere in the nation is education. They need education on their rights. And but I believe that
well, we all do, though. But,
yes.
I mean, not just the citizens, but the law enforcement officers.
Right.
You know, we got to get an education program set up in our sheriff's department. It's going to keep the guys educated, up to date on what's going on. Because if we don't, then they fall behind on this. What we used to be trained on, the force continuum, which is the 5 steps of using, and it goes all the way up to 5, which is deadly force. You know, it starts off with just officer confrontation, or officer's presence, and you got non-compliance by somebody, and you ask them, say, "Sir, take your hands out of your pocket." And the guy stands there, and you have a pretty good feeling that the guy knows pretty much what you're saying, and you say, "Sir, take your hands out of your pocket." And you've already got a confrontation. And whenever you get non-compliance, you know, you don't know, and it's all about the safety. Number one, it's about the safety of that person and the safety of the officer. You know, you want to make sure that both people go home or go wherever they're going to go here in a little bit, and none of them's going in the ambulance. That's the big thing, but you got to make sure that. But it goes all the way up, and see, most people don't realize that. And the officers, we got to make sure that we know this and what levels to go at. Because if somebody's standing there with their hands in their pocket, and you tell them, take your hands out of your pocket, this is the law enforcement side of it. You know, drawing your pistol and pointing at them, probably the right thing to do for the next step. You know, it's just training steps, and you've got to, you know, citizens that become worried, they don't have as much training as, say, that most law enforcement do to handle situations like that. But, you know, there's things that we can do. There's things that this administration actually did, the Citizen Academy, which I thought was a great idea, but I think it just needs to be taken and expanded on a little bit more from the standpoint of what else we can do. I think that getting people comfortable with weapons, i.e. pistols, is a key part to that. You know, not just issuing permits, but getting people to feel comfortable with it, so they're not driving down the road with a pistol that's not loaded, so they feel comfortable with it. Well, I just don't want it to go off. And you tell them, well, how's it going to go off unless your finger's on the trigger?
And education plays a big part of that as well.
Exactly. So, you know, I would like to see some type of, not a mandatory course, but a voluntary pistol course set up so that you could take out, and we'd have trainers within the sheriff's department that would go out, we'd find a good place to shoot range, 25 yards on in, and we'd set up and teach people how to shoot, how to become familiar with it, and just let them shoot. Bring their ammunition and shoot. And we'd give them opportunity to fire the course that what law enforcement has to fire to qualify to carry the pistol.
That would be great.
And it'd be a 50-round course, which is what they call a Q course, which is what they got from qualification course from the FBI a while back. But it's a bowling pin looking target, and it's what they call it Q targets. And that was all based upon what the FBI did a few years back, and it's called a Q course.
Well, the military had that, when I was in the military,
yeah.
had the silhouette, yes.
Yeah. That, you know, whenever I used to qualify with a M16 A1, I think it was A1. I think you got like A3 or A, no, actually it's just the M4 now. But whenever I used to qualify with M16 A1, I remember first range I went to out at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Not Fort Leavenworth, but Fort Riley, Kansas. Home of the Big Red One. We laid there on the range. It'd been raining that day. And we look out, and they show you the first target. You know, I think it's 300 yards. All right, here's your 250, I think, 200. It works on, and you're looking, you're like, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 30 rounds. I can't remember.
30 rounds. Yeah, you get
30 rounds for qualifying.
Right.
And so here we go. But we had the zero before that, so we had to realize that you've got to get that weapon zero to how you're aiming and how you're shooting. So it's a lot of educating in that. And that's the same thing that I'd like to see done with some citizens of Marshall County. Not make it mandatory, but make it an option for people that, hey, my daughter, my 9-year-old can handle my pistol, my little 380 I've got. And she doesn't feel uncomfortable with it because I've been out with her and I've showed her how to hold it, how to fire it, and what to do. And that's one of those things that if you take women or men or young kids and you want to get them familiar with it, then this is what we do. Now, there was a video on Facebook a few weeks ago about a young lady that shot somebody with Uzi. I mean, it's all dependent upon what the person's going to be utilizing. A 9-year-old with Uzi might be a little much, but we want people to be comfortable with them and make sure that we're able to facilitate those guys in that area. All about education. But I say again, it's not just educating the community about the laws. It's educating, keeping the law enforcement side of it up to par as far as education is. We have to, as a trooper, I have to maintain so many credits per year, continuing education units, so that I maintain my certification through APOST. That's the Alabama Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. So APOSTC, Alabama Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. So they establish what training that a person and what standards that training's got to be held to for a person to be certified through APOST. I'm certain. Well, every state has that type of commission.
Yes.
And it's made up of people that's, I'm not sure if the governor establishes, but usually it's folks within you may have some sheriffs, some chiefs of police, some higher up in the trooper ranks in it, some folks, different levels, but they become part of that commission. They establish those standards like the Q course.
I'm from Georgia and originally, and I have a friend that's in the Georgia State Patrol, and he has to go twice a year.
Yep.
And he has to, once a year he has to take tests, written tests, and twice a year he has to go qualify on the range, not only to get educated as far as his standings in the post, but efficiency and the laws, because they're always trying to put new laws out there. But he's like you. I've talked to him in length, known him for a long time, and he's a really fair guy, firm guy.
Yep.
He believes in giving a benefit of doubt, but also he knows the law well enough that he's going to stand firm in that law, and he stands firm in helping educate the citizens, anybody, and but he's fair, he's honest, and that's what I'm seeing in you. I'm seeing a fair guy, an honest guy. We're sitting here having a conversation, face to face, eye to eye, and you never look away. I've taken body language courses, and you seem to be to me, and I hope to all the citizens that watch this. Everybody that watches it, whether they're a citizen or alien, coming here legally and watches this, they will understand it. That I believe you are going to be a good and a fair, balanced sheriff for Marshall County.
That's right.
And I thank you for your
it's imperative
coming here.
I mean, you can't expect people to trust you if you can't let them know that you can be fair whenever you're called upon. You've got to make sure they know that they can trust you. And I go back to what I've said many times before. Politics isn't about popularity. It's not about liking somebody.
Right.
I mean, you're going to hear people say, well, I like him, I'm going to vote for him. Well, let's go a little step further. Let's not think about how much you like somebody, but let's listen to them talk, and whenever they tell you they're going to do something, realize that becomes his platform, that becomes my bullet items that I'm going to do whenever I'm elected sheriff. Whenever I say that we're going to increase enforcement in the communities, we're going to get out and be proactive, we're going to do that. Whenever I say that we're going to establish this firing program for people to become more familiarized with weapons and what they're doing, That's what we're going to do. Whenever I say that we're going to make changes within the bonding programs at the Sheriff's Department, that's what we're going to do. Whenever I say that we're going to make some huge changes within the jail with different people in different places and restructure it under a great guy that's going to run the jail, that's what we're going to do. But those become, my job description. And, people that are out there that are listening, people I get to talk to, bottom line is find somebody you trust. There's a lot of people I like that I may have a hard time trusting. But you find that person that you trust and say, I trust that he's going to do what he says he's going to do. I trust that whenever I call his sheriff's dispatch and I report a problem and I say, hey, there's been somebody out here vandalizing my mailbox and I just saw him drive away and it was in a black Tahoe with one headlight, somebody's going to do something about it. And they're going to follow through. It's not just doing something about it, but follow through, follow up on it. What we doing afterwards? What have we done afterwards? Because that's what's important. Not 3 or 4 weeks down the road, what have we done about it? But what did we do about it then? Because somebody that calls you and asks for help, they've called and want to know, what are y'all going to do? Because it's citizens that ultimately hold you accountable. And if you're not transparent enough with the people, then we failed hugely, because people just want to be treated fairly. People just want to know that they've been given that firm shake. And when it's all said and done, we've done everything that we can.
Well, that's mainly what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear, we've heard about you believing in God and country and the Constitution. We've heard about you being fair and balanced with the people. We've heard about the education. We've heard about everything that is positive. One more question, and then I'll let you finish. What is your plans on working with the cities and the chiefs of police in Marshall County, and that y'all can work together on?
I'm a uniter, not a divider. I want to unite people. I mean, there's a lot of things Sheriff's Office can do to help cities better combat some of the things they're doing. There's different resources that the Sheriff's Department has that they can bring to bear with the assistance of the cities, or helping the cities. At the city level, you've got a city police chief that's working for a mayor and a council. But usually a mayor that's appointed that person to be his police chief. So it's at the will of the mayor in most cases, in almost all cases in Marshall County. But with the Sheriff's Department, you've got an elected sheriff that can work with those guys, and he doesn't have to go whenever the police chief calls him and says, hey, we need help doing this. The sheriff can make the decision. He doesn't have to go to the commission, per se. Now, the commission does give a lot of funding to the Sheriff's Department, and that's another thing that's got to be looked at, is how we allocate the monies that are available to us, because I think the monies are there. We just got to figure out how we're going to allocate it so that we've got deputies in schools, so we've got enough people on patrol, so that we add extra people to those shifts. But we got to be willing to reach out to the police chiefs and say, hey, we're here to help you. What can we do to help you do this? Because, as I said just a moment ago, I'd much rather unite than divide. I'm not one of these hard-headed guys that's going to be stubborn like some people may think. I've been in law enforcement now for a while, and if you've ever run into me on the road, you know that I'm going to be fair with you, that I'll stop and talk to you. You may not think I will, but that first impression you get whenever a law enforcement officer approaches you is that first impression that you've got, and then we go from there. But anybody that has a problem at that point, and I mean, you want to present a tough appearance so that people that think they may want to get a little froggy, we'll say, may think otherwise. But what you do from there. But we got to be willing to work with the cities. We got to, Gunnersville, Iberville, Boaz, Arab, Grant, Douglas. I mean, all the cities, and the outline, and DeKalb, not just the cities, but the other counties. We make house calls. Well, Sometimes Sheriff's Department has to do some things and go check on stuff when it's warranted. But do we need to advertise it? Does it need to be advertised?
I don't think so.
Because I think that when it's all said and done, that sometimes the best things are done whenever nobody knows anything about it, and we're just taking care of business. And I'm not going to say it's business as usual, because a lot of the things that we've got right now that are going on, drugs, which is a huge problem. We've got to be willing to step in there and attack that from the get-go. And working with the drug unit is going to be no problem. I mean, we've got guys in the Sheriff's Department that are superb at what they do. I mean, I could start naming names of guys that can do drug interdiction with the best of them. And I mean, I've seen them work. I've worked beside them. I've seen them. And the same with the drug unit. They're as good as they come, you know. But we got to get to working back with those guys and the sheriff in DeKalb County and the sheriff in Madison County, Coleman County, Blount County, all over, and realize that, you know, we're all in this together. We're trying to do the same thing, and that's protect the citizens, because that's the number one priority of government. Any government, number one priority, protecting the citizens. I mean, there is no other.
Yeah. I go to Liberty Church in Arab, and they have, through Celebrate Recovery, a program. It's called Sunshine House, for those that have been on drugs or alcohol or just whatever, and they're down and out, but they're wanting to better themselves. They're broke, busted, and disgusted, but they want to get themselves back to normal. And what is your idea of working with the sheriffs the judges on drug rehabs?
I think it's important. I mean, we got to be willing to. I mean, people change. We got to acknowledge whenever somebody's got a problem. We got to be willing to step up and do something about it from the get-go. One of the hardest things for some people to do is acknowledge they got a problem. You know, that's one of the things whenever AA meetings, you know, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm alcoholic. They acknowledge it, boom, right from the get-go. So for people to acknowledge that, that's hard. And I know people that have been drug addicts or alcoholics that said, that's not me, I'm not one of those, I don't do that. So we got to work with people and let them realize that and work and say, this is what we're going to do. I think Marshall County's done one of the greatest things when they established the drug court. You know, and what you guys are doing with Celebrate Recovery is even, I mean, that's just even more awesome. The last time I was here, y'all had a group of folks here, I think it was back in June, and we were talking about the number of prisoners on average that are in the county jail. I think it's somewhere around 250. And I remember mentioning something, the fact that there were about 250 churches in the county.
Yes.
And I remember somebody, maybe been yourself, saying, hey, that's one per inmate. You know, if every church could step up and do something like that and take people under and give them that support group, because the hardest thing to do is whenever you're in that support group and people are giving you support and you feel good and you feel the love and you feel God moving around you and you feel the Spirit and you're just, I'm in it. But then 5 hours later, 6 hours later, 12, 18, 24, 36 hours later, when you're by yourself and your mind gets to working on you, you know, what support group you got in, and it's one of those things where you got people you can talk to, and the churches do a wonderful job, like you guys have done. You step up and you take people in and say, hey, we're going to help you. We're going to provide that support group. But, you know, with what Judge Hawk and some of the others, Judge Jolly and those guys, and Judge Riley established with the drug court, I mean, that's one of the blueprints for the state. There's been others that have come to Marshall County and looked and said, hey, what are we doing in drug court? And Judge Floyd doing a fabulous job. All the judges have, and they step up, and they're firm judges. They're firm in the fact that, number one, they know the law, so they're educated, just like what we got to be as law enforcement. We got to get guys better educated. And number two, they got that firmness, but they care. And one of the things we got to make sure of is that we keep letting people know we care. And one of the ways that y'all done it is by establishing that Celebrate Recovery. And there's not a better way to show people you care than reaching out to them. Yeah, right. You reach out to people and say, hey,
and I wish all churches would at least adopt one inmate to try to help get their life established back into the community. And I agree with you on that. And
there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that grow up in a home with love.
Right.
And I mean, that's sad. I was fortunate to grow up in a home where my mom and dad loved me a bunch.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, they did a lot for me. They still do a lot for me. And I almost get emotional thinking about it, because at 70 years old, they're out helping me try to get elected sheriff. And whenever people do stuff to different things, and it's my dad that goes out to repair these things, and he goes out and he gets involved in it the way that he has. I mean, it touches me. But for people then to turn around and say, well, he's not exactly, he doesn't know what maybe he's not telling. You call into question the integrity of my parents. I've got a problem with that. And, that's one of those things. But the love of my parents, is why I sit here today. Am I perfect? No. I don't know if anybody's perfect. Do we all sin? We all fall short every day. Are we saved by the grace of God? Yes. But we fall short every day. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm perfect. And I'm not going to tell you that everybody's going to work for me in the sheriff's department is going to be perfect. But we're going to know our job, and we're going to work hard, and we're going to treat people fair, and we're going to let them know we care. And when we do that, they're going to say, well, there's love. I feel that love. And it's that love that, when you go to church, that day that I was here, you can feel it here. I mean, that love. God said He's love. I mean, beginning and the end. That's
right. That's right. Well, Chuck, I want to thank you for being here with us in this interview. To let the citizens know where you stand. Do you have any more comments for the?
I think that whenever the citizens of Marshall County go on November 4th, they just, like I say again, when I talked about blueprints a little while ago about drug court, I had some pretty good blueprints of my parents. My mom, and I didn't answer a while ago. I go to Corinth Church in Apple, there on Rose Road, where Brother Kevin Painter's the preacher. Great guy, great preacher. Had the honor of seeing my daughter baptized. I actually saved on March 30th. And, that was pretty cool. If I get to see nothing else,
that makes your whole day. Yeah.
And then she ended up getting baptized. I never will forget that after we went to church that day, that they were showing God's Not Dead at the in Boaz. So we loaded up and went and saw it. And to sit there and to watch that movie, it's a great movie. I mean, it's a very good movie. And we sat there and watched it, but at the very end of it, there was a part that was pretty hard for me to watch. And as it was progressing to the point in the movie, and everything's about time. Life's about time. How we go about things, and the extra 2 minutes I sit right here may save me from getting T-boned by a big truck out here in a minute on Warrenton Road. But as you watched it progress, and you watched the guy that was the professor that said, your God's not alive. You don't want your tongue. God's dead. Write a paper on it. And the guy said, no. And they had the dissertation, and they went the diatribes back and forth. But at the end of the movie, whenever he was going to see the Newsboys, and he stopped and he read the letter from his mom, and he did this and he did that. But he stood on that curb as the rain started, and he started to cross that road, and he got hit by the vehicle. And see, the thing about it is I related to that somewhat because what had occurred. But what happened to him immediately whenever he laid there, I'd related to it just 2 or 3 hours before my daughter got saved in church. And to sit there, and I couldn't watch the part where he got hit because back on November 28th, I was out jogging one morning and I actually got hit by a truck. So that part of it I understand, and I still hurt because of it. But to be able to see that and to realize what had happened that day was, if God kept me around for nothing else, He kept me around to see, my 9-year-old daughter get saved on March 30th, 2014, and be able to say, that was a pretty cool feeling. And the fact that my mama was with her, and they were at church, and you know, it was like my big sister said, "You need to look at your little girl right there," and it was just, you know, and I almost get emotional thinking about it. And there's so many people out in the communities that need to feel that love, and like I say, I'm not going to change all of them, and we're not going to get everybody turned around, but we can make a difference. But we got to be willing to work with them and let people know they love. We got to let people know that there's things they need to do. That people need to work. People need to get out and be productive, and you know, let's all get in this thing together and stop working against each other. People out being thieves and being mean towards other people, and be good to people. Treat them the way you want to be treated, you know, and stop and think at some point. You know, would my mama be proud of me right now while I'm doing this? Would my daddy be proud of me? Would my God be proud of me? Because I'm going to tell you right now, your mom and daddy may not know what you're doing right now if you're out thieving, but our God knows. And that someday you may have to answer for it.
Well, Chuck, thank you for the interview, and I urge all the people in Marshall County to come out in November. I mean, all the people.
That's right.
If you're not registered to vote, register to vote, and vote for Chuck Ellis